CEO of Purchasing and Procurement Center. Now, for those who are not familiar with us, we specialize solely on delivering procurement trainings, procurement competency development programs based on specific job roles and corporate e-learning programs. Now, we do also provide additional resources like this online class or webinar, white papers or reports, as well as videos on demand, which can be accessed for free within our members area. Now, one thing unique, I believe, about Purchasing and Procurement Center is that our goal is to get buyers to look upon themselves as professionals that are highly respected by their peers and their organization because of the big difference that procurement can make to the profit of the company. And we aim to transform the way top management actually looks at the procurement as a strategic unit. So that basically the top manager will look at procurement in the same way they look at other departments like finance, marketing, or sales, since procurement actually contributes the same or at times even more than these other units to the profit and bottom line of the company. Now, actually, I believe that you probably might be here because you would want to improve your negotiation skills with suppliers so that you not only get better prices with them, but also a lower total cost of ownership without antagonizing suppliers, but actually having them wanting to do business with you. And that's why we have today with us Amit Gamami, who's been nicknamed the godfather of negotiations from Intel Corp, to show how to use this 7-step process for win-win negotiation. Amit, it's great to have you here today.
It's a great day, and I appreciate your having me here, Arti, and thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Amit, for being with us. Now, for those who are not familiar with Amit, Amit is an MBA graduate from University of California, and he has 18 years experience with Intel Corp, where he runs 2.2 billion corporate purchasing operations. Currently, he is the President and Chief Purchasing Officer of Purchasing Advantage, and he has over 3,000 hours of private and public sector training experience in over a dozen countries. He's also an established author with 2 best-selling procurement books, which are Class Contract Management and Purchasing Advantage. Finally, his staff appeared on TV as a procurement industry expert, as well as is a adjunct professor of procurement at Folsom Lake University. Now, what I'd like to do is quickly talk about this. What is this online webinar all about? You know already that we're going to cover the 7 steps to successful negotiation, but here is in more details what is the agenda for today. First of all, we're going to go into how and why purchasing becomes full-time firefighters and how to get out of it. We reveal this in step 1. Secondly, we answer a question: what are you really negotiating for? Now, if all you are negotiating for is goods and services, then you're really going to be surprised when you hear this, because real procurement professionals do not negotiate for goods and services, but with something else, which we shall reveal in step 2. Next, we're going to move on 3 innocent questions that you can ask suppliers. This is going to help you understand them better and reveal actually how badly the supplier needs your business. Again, this is on step 3. Next, we're going to move on 2 words that you must never use in negotiations. Why? Because people have lost their jobs by using these words, and companies actually have been sued. So we show what are these 2 words in step 4, and also what are the words that you should use instead. On step 5, we focus on why it's wrong to tell the supplier what you want, and again, what do you actually tell instead, or what do you do instead. Then we show what Abraham Lincoln teaches us regarding negotiations in step 6. And finally, in step 7, we'll show how to close negotiations and celebrate with the supplier. Now, another 2 cool things that you are going to receive is that, hey, you're going to get the slides of this presentation and a certificate of participation. Now, you need to stick with us until the end of this class, since our technology partners have assured us that we will only capture those who stay until the end to get the slide and the certificate. And listen, based on what we've prepared, I know that you would want these slides. Also, if you have a question, please write it down there in the space provided on your screen and send it to us. Now we'll try to answer questions if time allows it during the webinar. If we can, and we'll try to answer it by email. Now, please ensure that you update the correct email address. So please do participate either by asking questions, or when we're going to ask certain questions during the webinar, answer those questions in your head or loudly. I mean, it just doesn't matter as long as you answer it. If there's nobody in the room, you can answer it loudly. But what's important is that this is going to help you tremendously, as it's been proven that when you participate, you retain much more of what you see and hear. And by the way, you're going to repeat some things because, as a saying says, it's repetition is the mother of knowledge. This is not done because we overlook things and we're repeating it again, but intentionally, you know, by design, to stress certain important points that we believe will help you becoming a great negotiator. Now, before I go on, I wanted to go through one of the biggest, if not the biggest myth in negotiations, that is the win-win myth. Now for this, I'll pass it over to Amit to show why this is a myth and how we can ensure, or how can we make win-win a reality. Over to you, Amit.
Okay, thank you very much, Artin. So we're going to take a look at this. We have Larry David giving a quote from his show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he was in a heated argument with somebody else, and he saw that she was unhappy. They were trying to strike a compromise, and she was unhappy about it, and so he tried to make her feel better about it. And he said, I know, look, listen, you're unhappy. I'm unhappy too. That's what a good compromise is all about. A good compromise is when both parties are dissatisfied. And I think that's what we have here. And so this immediately caught my attention because this is the prevailing myth in procurement today, that everything has to be a compromise, and you take what both parties want and you split it down the middle. The reality is, when you split the pie down the middle, that's a lose-lose. And the reason it's a lose-lose is because neither party gets what they wanted out of the deal. Now, here's something that I really want you to pay attention to. Rookie negotiators only see one pie. You see, we have a pie here. We split it down the middle, and each party got half. Both party wanted the whole pie. Neither party got the whole pie. Rookie negotiators see only one pie, and that's the price pie. And so if you go into the negotiations as a procurement professional and you assume that the only thing of value for the supplier is price, guess what you're going to be negotiating? You'll be negotiating price, and the only thing you can do is move from that position in order to make the supplier happy. That is a rookie strategy that I want you to get out of the business of doing. So let's look at some tips to defining win-win. And win-win has been talked about so much that it's completely lost meaning. The first thing that I really want you to get away from this is that win-win means meeting your high-value objectives and having the vendor feel good about the deal. This is part of the art and science of negotiations. When you can achieve all of your biggest TCO objectives and still have the vendor feel good about it instead of being bitter, then you can say that you've arrived as a procurement professional. I'm going to teach you how to do these things, but it's critical that you understand what the other party's sides are and what their interests are before you can do this. The antiquated methods of negotiation that are out there that are focused on getting the upper hand and painting the supplier in a corner with an unfair advantage, forcing them to agree to you, doesn't work. That is a 1950s approach, and it has no business being around in today's procurement business model. The next thing I want you to know is that even if you do employ those techniques, you'll have bitter vendors. And believe me, bitter vendors can and will find ways to increase revenue. They'll get their money back, and every time you pick up the phone or your customer or end user
Threat has been detected.
Picks up the phone to call the vendors to ask for something, which will happen many times after the contract is signed, instead of them saying, sure, we're all over it, we'll be there, we'll fly somebody out, they'll do those things, but they'll also send you a bill. And that's the difference. And so if you try and establish an unfair advantage and take advantage of suppliers by using these antiquated techniques, they're still going to get their money and they won't feel good about the deal. And you'll end up paying more overall. And what will happen is you won't have a win-win, you'll have a win-lose, and in fact, you'll end up spending even more money. Tip number 3 here is that this is part of knowing when you've arrived as a procurement professional. Allowing the vendor to win while still meeting your objectives is an art form. Now, what I want you to do, instead of viewing negotiations as being one pie that you're trying to split, I'm I'm going to teach you how to develop multiple pies. In fact, I want you to become a baker. We want to make as many pies as possible, and I will teach you techniques to identify which pies have high value to the supplier but low TCO impact to you. And we're going to try and give as many pies as we can to the supplier to make them feel so enriched from the deal. Meanwhile, you have not impacted your TCO proposition, your value proposition, because you're very select in what you gave the supplier. So this is the modern day win-win approach that you won't find out about any place else. And I feel like it's something I'm pioneering because I really feel like the win-win that's out there today is focused on splitting the pie in half, and I want to take a different approach with that, and that's what I want to teach you. We're going to give the supplier entire pies, but they're going to be pies that don't impact your TCO value proposition.
Thanks, Amit. Now, what I'd like to do is talk about becoming a true professional negotiator. Now, what we have found is that some people might wonder whether they can, what do I say, really negotiate with suppliers, especially, we have those cases where the suppliers swear that they